just to make sure I'm seeing your levels on the dark.
Testing. Sibilance.
Yes, all the sibilants.
Mike's House of Meat, you kill him, we grill him.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and you guys can all hear this sound effect, right? Okay, awesome.
Get ready for the other one.
Oh, yes, all of them are coming at you. Oh, what? What? Oh no, Paul, don't tell me that. Awesome, guys. Then I just have some final checks with you, Tony. And can you bring up the thing? Hey, Ashley, the thing that's like your guest host license thing that we have people read when they're first timers. It should be in the email I sent you.
You got to take the oath.
Yeah, Toby, you gotta take the oath. The oath? Put your hand on your heart and cross your eyes.
Wow.
All right, I have to log into my email since I have now downloaded a brand new web browser. All right, I think I got it.
Okay.
Do I have to read it out loud?
Yes, because I record it.
Gotcha. I, your name, my name, Tony Talavera, give permission to Francisco Ruiz and the Retro Rewind podcast to use my video, voice, and vocal commentary recorded within the Retro Rewind podcast in any past, present, future, or alternate dimension recordings of the Retro Rewind podcast in any and all media in perpetuity without any restrictions, with no expectation to receive compensation now or in the future as it relates to any past, present, and or future recordings of the Retro Rewind podcast. So help me God. Cross my heart, hope to die with the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
That's great. I mean, you sort of ad-libbed a bit there, but I like the extra dimensions because just in case.
Give the guys in the legal department some hoops to jump through.
Oh my gosh. Tony, do you have your 2 likes and a classic maker, your favorite thing, 2 dislikes and a tragic maker, your least favorite thing? Okay.
I got a couple of those things. Yeah, so 3, and I sent some stuff to Paul about 12 minutes ago because I didn't understand the assignment.
No worries.
Unfortunately, it didn't make, well, we weren't able to use it because it didn't come in time, but we're glad you're here.
Thank you for saying it. Yeah, we're glad you're here. Thank you for saying it nonetheless. Do you have a spiritual speculation question? This is for our bonus content time where we talk about the spiritual themes of Labyrinth.
I answered every question that was in the email, so I have a spiritual and theological take on it, yes.
Sweet. Excellent. Fantastic. Yeah. Then
I like to think we're all lost in a labyrinth without God. How's that?
Save it for the bonus content. That's perfect, Chris, but too early.
I'm ready to pass the offering plate right now.
I knew of a church that would pass the popcorn bucket, but anyway. All right.
Did they meet in a movie theater?
Maybe. I don't think they did though. But regardless,
I think that just was a movie theater.
Right? Oh.
Yeah, at the movies.
My favorite was when the praise team came up, but it was the Avengers instead.
Nice.
So awesome. Yes. All right, guys. Well, thumbs up if you're ready to actually go with the actual recording of the show.
Let me know if my cough drop makes too much noise, okay?
Hey, Paul, your cough drop makes too much noise, okay?
All right, thanks.
Oh, my gosh. By the way, before we get going, welcome Ashley, Mrs. Wyndham, D. Tungsten, Bobo, let's see, Dale, Fresh. So glad you're all here. We're about to get going, so here we go. And let's see, am I ready for this? Yeah. 5, 4.
Wait for
3.
it.
So the labyrinth is a piece of cake, is it? Well, let's see how you deal with this. Hold on. I can hear you typing. That doesn't count as an Edna mode. Don't tell me that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the labyrinth is a piece of cake, is it? Well, let's see how you deal with this little slice on this episode of the Retro Rewind podcast.
Reflux capacitors fluxing. Crew to stations. Scanning for Labyrinth 1986. Prepare to rewind in 3, 2, 1.
Something very familiar about all this.
Yeah, right? Welcome, Rewinders and new listeners, to the Retro Rewind podcast, where we take a fresh look at movies and games from 15 or more years ago. I'm your captain of the pod, Francisco Ruiz, and I'm joined by your exo and mine, Paul, the master soundboarder Powers.
Who's ready to dance, magic dance, magic dance?
Totally ready for that, Paul.
Right.
Also, for this discussion of the film Labyrinth, we welcome aboard for the first time speaker, singer, actor, artist, podcaster, pastor, writer, wronger, gamer, geek, father, and friend, all of which mean nothing if it doesn't reflect Jesus, Tony Talavera. Hey, Tony.
You remind me of the Babe.
The babe with power?
What power? Yeah, that's the one. Hello, I am delighted and tickled to be here on the Retro Rewind podcast, talking about 15-plus-year-old stuff.
Yay. So glad you're here, Tony. And in addition to Tony, we are glad to have back aboard Entertainment Officer Chris Cowan. Hey, Chris.
Hey, always a pleasure to be on here. I am also tickled to be on here, and I would like you to stop tickling me, please. It's kind of an invasion.
That was in the contract, though, Chris. You signed that I could tickle you whenever I want.
I know, but it's a little like you're just kind of focusing on the same areas, and I've tickle diversity, I think. Like,
Okay. So I need to move my tickling around. Okay, I think I can swing that.
I'm feeling uncomfortable.
Okay, I'm tired of this bit. I'm uncomfortable with this bit now, Chris.
Legal department just says that he did agree to your name, give permission to Francisco.
Oh my gosh, Tony!
To tickle me liberally at their leisure. I'm reading it right here. That's word.
Now that you have a not so quick flyby of who we are, Paul, can you give us a quick overview of the production specs for Labyrinth?
All right, sure. Labyrinth was released August 26th in the year 2002. Runs an hour and 55
What is
minutes.
this that you're talking about, Paul?
Labyrinth.
1980
Directed by Miroslav Lekic.
1986's Labyrinth, Paul. Directed by Jim Henson.
That one. Hold on.
Wait,
Let me
this
go
isn't
back.
the Guillermo del Toro one?
This
Well,
isn't
that's
Pan's
The
Labyrinth.
guy with the hands.
Ah,
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. Let me go back and watch the right one.
where the Nazi
Okay.
gets his face bashed in.
Oh my god.
Labyrinth was
No.
released June 27th, 1986, and runs an hour and 41 minutes and is rated PG. It was directed by Jim Henson, written by Dennis Lee, Jim Henson, and Terry Jones, with lead stars being David Bowie, Jennifer Connelly, and Brian Henson.
Whoa,
The
you said
music
those
was
so wonderfully, Paul. Good job.
Well, yes. The music was composed by Trevor Jones and original songs by David Bowie. Are you ready for the box office trivia?
I am ready. Chris and Tony, are you guys ready?
Born ready, baby.
Yes.
Awesome. And everyone live here in chat, well, feel free to join in as well. Go for it, Paul.
Labyrinth was made for about $25 million and earned only just over $13 million at the box office. So, given this fact, how high in the box office do you think it ranks among the movies released theatrically in 1986? And this time, we'll go for the top 70. That's 70.
70. Okay. Tony, what is your guess for where it places in the movies that came out in 1986?
I assume that every movie that came out in 1986 ranked under Transformers the movie. So I'm going to say we're going to give that a nice 62.
62. All right. How about you, Chris?
That's a tough one. I can think of tons of movies that came out in 1985, but
Uh-huh.
1986, I don't remember a lot of movies that came out that year. But at like half the budget, in at least, I'm going to say 53.
53. All right. Let's see. In chat, we have several responses here. We got, let's see here. Miss Wyndham says just straight up 70. Bobo Sway Knight says 42, of course. D. Tungsten says 70. Ashley says 62. Dale says 20. Oh, okay. So a little higher. I'm going to go with 69, dudes. That's what I'm going to go with. Paul,
Nice.
where did it finally end up?
Well, according to the-numbers.com, Tony and Ashley hit it right on the head with 62.
What?
Wow.
What? Somebody call my mama.
Well done, guys.
Oh, I
Fantastic.
have her
You
on
will
speed
get.
dial. I'll do that right now.
Oh my God.
Why I oughta?
Let's not get to fisticuffs quite yet, guys.
Okay, Power Rangers, let's do it!
The wrong movie completely, Paul. But thank you for those factoids, and let's see if any of them factor into our memory mind meld or subsequent roundtable discussion, which we'll get into once Alice has located our target film.
Alert, alert. Target located. Spoilers incoming. Establishing analysis sector.
Jim Henson, creator of The Muppets, and George Lucas, creator of Star Wars, team up to take you on a magical journey to a world of fantasy and adventure.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
The dazzling world of Labyrinth.
Yes, the dazzling world of Labyrinth, you might say. And maybe our memories were bedazzled by this movie. But let's find out what our memory mind melt synopsis. Don't look at me that way, Chris. Labyrinth was. A teenage Rocketeer lady has a bad attitude about babysitting a baby, so she prays to some goblins to take the baby away, and they do. But before getting her sights on Top Gun's Maverick, what? Sarah has to solve a Ziggy Stardust maze to save her brother. Androgynous 80s rock star Dave Bowie sings a bizarre song about the baby while wearing overly tight pants. Meanwhile, a beautiful mind's wife collects friends like an adventure RPGs game. An adventurer's RPG game. Wow. Pro tip, whenever you confront a kidnapper, just tell him, you have no power over me, and all the problems go away. Finally, Sarah realizes her brother is more important than her stuff. Well, some of that was right, but some of it was interlayer, because this is the thing I forgot, Paul. Decepted. I knew I forgot one sound drop.
Edna mode.
Yes, okay, fine. It'll be interesting to see if those predictions come true, but first let's get into our discussion. Oh, wait. Dang it! Another animal. Based on those memories, as flawed as they were, what range did they lead you to predict for this film before rewatching it? Classic, nostalgic, or tragic? Let's start with Tony again. What was your prediction for this movie?
Oh, this was a tough one because for me, it's a classic. For me, this goes top shelf. I mean, this is a legendary movie, but I don't know that everybody that watches this movie is going to feel the same way. I feel like it becomes more, from my understanding, kind of a thing that, oh, you loved it if you were there, but it didn't really translate.
I'm going to pause you. This is your prediction before you rewatched it, not your final reign for after you watched it.
No. This was me kind of bandying about in my mind.
Carry on then.
You know how you remember liking something a lot, and then you watch it again, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I felt like a classic, but then I settled on it's going to be nostalgic. Before I watched it, I said it might just be 7-year-old me, 8-year-old me watching this movie, loving it, but not me.
Gotcha. So your prediction was nostalgic when you sort of factored all those things in. Got it. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Chris, what was your prediction for this film?
Yeah, my prediction was also nostalgic. I think it's
It's just that way. Okay.
Well, I didn't see it for the first time till I was like 14, and it did.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't know, 10 years or more. So like it was kind of, I saw it a little bit later than I didn't like see it in theaters and like necessarily like grow up with it in my formulative years.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's definitely has that 80s fantasy classic, and so I kind of figured, nostalgic for the people who grew up with it. Is my
totally fair
prediction.
Paul, how about yourself? What was your prediction?
Nostalgic.
Okay. Expand. No. And then for me, actually, it's oh my gosh.
Expanded.
Turn back. For me, I actually predicted classic because it's weird. Like I know, I feel like we may have covered this movie before. I don't know, but I mean, maybe hopefully, since this is where the riddle that Jaerod gave us pointed. For those that don't know what we're talking about, check out our ship's log number 3. But I predicted classic because I remember when I have seen this as a kid, I liked it. And every time I've watched it since, it's gotten better. So it'll be interesting to see if those... What was that, Chris?
It has a disobedient child in it.
The baby?
No, the
the
main
teenager.
protagonist.
Yeah, well, we may
Jennifer
talk about
Connelly.
why that isn't a sticking point later,
Okay.
Or
Chris.
why it
All right.
is.
Okay.
Maybe
All
why
I'm
it is.
Jumping the gun. I'm just shocked.
Yeah.
I'm just shocked.
Okay.
I am
Based
too.
on those memories. That's not the line, Francisco. So you got me all flustered, Chris.
Edna mode.
So many. Usually, Tony, this is a well-oiled machine. There's nothing to edit out. It's just flawless. Chris.
Agreeing with you for sure. For sure.
Oh.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, let me try again. It'll be interesting to see if those predictions come true. But first, let's get into our discussion of the things we liked most about Labyrinth. Let's spin up our...
Best bets.
All right, and let's start with Tony. What is one thing you liked, not your favorite thing, but one thing you did like about Labyrinth, specifically in this viewing?
Wow. There are so many memorable moments. You know, there's a lot of these movies, especially kind of 80s movies, they might have one moment that makes the trailer or the poster or that gets a playset made out of it. So that kind of becomes the iconic one scene. But this movie, every single scene is a gem. I mean, every interaction that she has with characters, there's so many unique. It's like the Odyssey. From door knockers to the oubliette.
That's a good way of thinking about it, yeah.
There's just so many cool set pieces in this, and I can't think of any other movie from my childhood that just has so many unique, standout, charming, terrifying moments. Like if they made action figures of this when I was a kid, I would have had to buy so many play sets, and I just loved it. There was just so many great memorable moments in the movie.
Yeah, I'll actually springboard off that into something I like because it's similar. It's tied to that, and that's all the creative and original creatures in this film. You got Hoggle, you got the Truth and Lying Doors, you have Ludo, Didymus, so many interesting creatures that were so original. I feel like Henson of this era was very good at coming up with original concepts for creatures, and so I thought that was really interesting and certainly kept me engaged. Like, wow, what's this thing? And I only have one quibble that actually goes against both those, both my like and yours, Tony. But we'll save that for later. Chris, were the creatures or the moments in this film something you enjoyed, or was there something else you really liked?
Something I enjoyed, but I'll talk more about that later. I think for me, one of the highlights for me was that the MC Escher staircase scene.
Oh, yes.
Familiar with MC Escher, he kind of is the famous artist for all those bizarre stairs with people walking different directions, and he does a lot of those kind of like impossible paintings and drawings and that kind of thing. And so I just like that scene to me is just very iconic, and it's a good space to kind of hold the climax. You're dealing with this labyrinth the whole way through, and like how do you kind of build off of that labyrinth concept?
I never thought about that,
you
but
have
yes,
the stairs go in different directions, and like gravity and takes a different turn and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought that was kind of a fun climactic twist.
Absolutely, yes.
That's great.
Yeah, and I also like that they seed that because they have a picture of MC Escher's staircase thing in her room at the beginning. So I like how that's.
Oh, do they? I totally didn't notice. That's great.
Every time I watch this movie, I see something else in her room that's showcased later on in the movie. I mean, everything that she encounters is in her room.
Well, except what I noticed this time around in her room is a Judge Dredd comic, which back in the 80s is like violent and stuff. And I'm like, what is this teenage girl doing with the Judge Dredd comic?
It was Toby's. She had to count.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The
Never
baby
trust a
was
baby in stripy
Judge Dredd.
pajamas.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It's a Where's Waldo
thought it
whole
was-
movie about it.
I thought it was interesting that they had a David Bowie album in there too.
Oh right, was it a cassette or was it a record? I forget. I read about that, but I didn't see it.
Was there actually? I don't know.
I think so. I know there's a David Bowie
okay
picture or a statue of him or something.
There's a statue of a Goblin King-esque.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, so you noticed lots of things, Paul. What's something you noticed that struck your fancy about Labyrinth?
Well, I'm gonna have to agree with Chris and Tony about the set piece of the MC Escher climax. The only thing I'll add to that is that I've seen other movies, and I can't think off the top of my head where I've seen it, or TV shows where they tried to recreate such a landscape like that before, and nothing has ever been done quite as well as Labyrinth here.
Yeah, I know Inception did it once where two of the characters are walking up a stair, and then you look, the camera shifts, and you look like you can like drop right down because of how it was. But yes,
that's esque, but it's not quite the
yeah. This is taking that to like the 10th degree for sure.
Right.
And in that scene, it's not just the visual, the music, that song within you that's playing. It just adds to that intensity and that kind of offbeat staccato feeling. It's very off. It's unsettling and it's powerful.
And it's almost dream-esque, and like those dreams where it's either you're running away and you can't get away from someone, or you try and go through a portal, but it just gets tighter and tighter. It had that sort of anxiety feeling, like she can't ever seem to catch up to wherever the baby is, no matter which way she goes. So.
And she's naked and she hasn't studied for her algebra test. Oh my gosh, who hasn't had that dream? Okay.
Me.
No, you know what? I just wish I had come up with something as comedic as that, Tony. That's what I'm chafing against.
You have to hide in the school bathroom, and it's having the janitor call your mom to bring you some clothes.
All right.
Nostalgic and classic, kids.
Oh my goodness.
And tragic.
Since you want to keep talking, Tony, why don't you give us one more thing you liked about this film?
I would be delighted. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. I'll give you a hard time now. Give me a hard time. It's tit for tat over here.
Continue. So I'll play off of what you said. You talked about kind of the characters.
Yeah.
I think that the puppetry in this, and I used to be a puppeteer at Disney World. I think that was actually kind of how the connection got made when to get the invite for me to come to
yes.
Who did you know at Disney World?
Who did I know, or
who did you puppeteer at Disney World?
So my primary was the genie from Aladdin.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
But I also did Hugo from Hunchback of Notre Dame, and from Pocahontas, and I did a bunch of different things. But genie was my go-to. A Figment from Epcot,
awesome.
If you're familiar with Florida Disney.
Sure,
very
cool.
cool.
Dragon.
Yeah, so the puppets in this movie are outstanding. I mean, they're just outstanding, and like I never once when I'm watching this movie think of Hoggle as a puppet character.
Yeah.
A living, breathing character, and the other actors. I mean, there's not a lot of human actors in the Labyrinth, right? But Sarah sells this. Jaerod sells this. They interact with this character like he is a real life being, and not just those. I mean, the giant mecha goblin that comes out of the doors of the Goblin City is incredible. But to me, the most memorable, like as far as like puppeteering and unconventional puppeteering, were the helping hands. I've never seen anything like that.
Yes.
And
so
that's
simple
amazing.
yet brilliant. Yeah.
Brilliant.
You know what's strange about that scene, and it gets me almost every time. Have you guys ever seen? It's a Bill Pullman like zombie-esque movie called Rainbow and the Serpent.
Spaceball. No, wait,
Not
sorry, what?
Spaceballs. It's called either Serpent and the Rainbow or Rainbow and the Serpent.
Serpent and the Rainbow is familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's a similar scene where he's falling and there's all these hands around him or something. I don't think they catch him. It's supposed to be a lot more horrific. But I always sort of like confuse those scenes for whatever reason. But anyway. That's neither here nor there.
You're allowed to confuse Bill Pullman and Bill Paxton, but you're never allowed to confuse Bill Pullman and Jennifer Connelly.
I can confuse whoever I want, Tony. Who are you again?
Be watching Spaceballs, and that's it. I'll allow Independence Day if you want, or Newsies, but that's about it.
Okay. Paul, what would you allow as another like of this film?
Well, speaking of puppetry, Ludo is my favorite character. I mean, hands down.
Really?
Yeah.
Ludo. Oh, smells bad.
Right. He's just lovable, and the puppetry behind him is amazing, and it's yeah.
Am I wrong that one of the arms is sort of like slack or not moving because the hand of the puppeteer was doing the mouth, and the other hand was the other arm of the person? Or
Yeah, it's a dead arm puppet. It's similar to what they use, like Bear in the Big Blue House. That was actually the largest puppet that Jim Henson had ever built for one person to operate.
Oh wow!
They built it a couple times, but it was so heavy they kept having to remake it until they finally got it down to about 75 pounds. And they got two different guys, one guy who operated it in the voice, and then they had a stand-in guy to operate it because it was just too physically daunting for him to run it for a whole shoot.
Wow, craziness!
You can actually see the same thing if you look closely at Joe Biden. You can same puppetry.
Wow.
We'll have to watch out for that.
Yeah. I'll look next time during his press conference.
I'm muting my microphone
now. Chris, was the puppeteering of Joe Biden something that you really gravitated to in this movie, or is there something else?
No, I mean the puppetry was fantastic. I mean it's Jim Henson at his Jim Hensiest, and it's like just tons of creative character designs and techniques, especially for the 80s. Like it's just really just from an appreciation of the art of Muppetry, and like especially like if you just loved the history of Jim Henson with Muppets and Sesame Street and all that, and Star Wars and just his and Frank Oz's involvement in like movies. This is just a great kind of time capsule of Jim Henson puppet mastery. I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely. I so often feel like I think it's the most apparent in the Ninja Turtles movies, but after he died, it seemed like all the realism that his puppets seemed to evoke just evaporated. I don't know if it's a combination of how his puppets were filmed and also how they were made, but something just got lost, and now it never seems like the magic is captured in quite the same way.
Well, I thought they did a good job in Muppets Christmas Carol.
I was going to say that, Paul. That's the best Muppet movie. I know Jim Henson wasn't alive, but it's the best Muppet movie and the best Christmas Carol ever made. So just
I'm sorry. Then now I'm going to have to disagree with you, Chris. But anyway.
So close to a partnership, but now no.
It is wrong.
Oh my god!
But I do notice a lack of I don't know what it is, but the lack of realism versus interaction or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is peak puppeteering. I mean, this is right on.
Absolutely.
They wrote this movie in a limo leaving, I think, the premiere of The Dark Crystal. They basically came up with the concept for
Really?
this movie.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, the baby Toby, his father was one of the guys that did the design work for the movie, and it was him and his wife and Jim Henson were in the limo, and they're like, "What do we do next?" Because they swore when they were making Dark Crystal they weren't going to make another movie, and then they're like, "Let's make another movie." So they pitched the idea, and they did it. But you're looking at, I mean, the guys who did this, and this was the best of the best. I think after Ninja Turtles, you really started to see the 3D animation. Pixar kind of came over. And the demand and desire, artists weren't really following the puppet path anymore. It became more of a niche art form. But this was the height of puppetry. This was where
I could see that.
The renaissance of puppeteering.
Yeah, how would you say, like, just pitting this against Dark Crystal, how would you say the puppetry in this compares to Dark Crystal?
I think it's better, and I'll tell you why. It's the same reason that you think that the Muppets Christmas Carol is the best Muppets and the best Christmas Carol, because there's something that happens when you're watching only puppets, but there's something that's far more magical when you're watching puppets interact with people and you believe it.
Because there aren't people in Dark Crystal, right?
No. And that's the way that's the way that Michael Caine played Scrooge, is he played it like he wasn't talking to puppets. He played it like he was talking to actors. And that's why this movie, that's why you believe Hoggle, that's why you believe Ludo. And it's really hard to make a puppet look good when it's interacting with humans, because you can't suspend disbelief. Any fakery and trickery with the puppets becomes immediately obvious.
That's an awesome insight, Tony.
That's a great
for
point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Chris, so was the puppeteering, that was the other thing you liked, or was there
Yeah.
something else? Okay.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
For me, my last like before we get to our classic makers, guys, and this has nothing to do with anything, so it's like this is a hard segue. I'm going to say that how quickly this movie sort of gets going after the long credit sequence with the owl, which took entirely too long in my opinion, but that is how movies were back in the 80s. I understand. But it's just like you get the premise of she doesn't like her brother and her brother's gone, and then she's on this quest. I feel, and then it seems like the movie's paced very well for the vast majority. There's a little quibble I'll have that we'll talk about in the next section that I have with it, but I feel like it's done really well. So that's my other like. But now let's get to the things our favorite things about the movie Labyrinth. I'm gonna go with Paul this time first. What's your favoriteest thing, Paul?
The best thing about this movie, in my opinion, is the two main human stars being David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly.
Okay.
They
You don't
really
think Sting would have been better?
They really carry this movie. Well, I don't know, but I think David Bowie did a phenomenal job.
He
in
did.
fact,
Yeah,
I wish
I'm being
he
silly,
had
yes.
acted more in more roles.
Yeah,
but
yes. He's in Zoolander. That was something.
I know. Besides that,
plays
he's probably
Nikola-
offered other roles, and he's like,
He was Nikola Tesla in The Prestige.
Oh yeah, that's,
that's
right. He
right.
was. I forgot about that.
He did great as that. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
So you
So
would like to see more. Okay. that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah, but I thought they did really well acting wise, like making you believe like these are more than just puppets; these are actually characters in a movie that they're interacting with, and they kept me intrigued.
Absolutely. Yes. Let's go to Chris next. What's your most favorite thing about Labyrinth?
Yeah, so my classic maker is really just it's kind of what Tony said at the very beginning, like just the vision, the attention to detail from a design standpoint.
Yeah.
In terms of the matte paintings and the set construction and the detail that they put into the visuals of the puppets, as well as just like the mechanics of them. Like it's just like from a technical and artistic visual standpoint, there's just a lot of eye candy. And I think, and I'm not talking about Jennifer Connelly.
Or how about David Bowie?
She was 14 when she filmed this movie, man. So you're gonna get put on a list, I think.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying Jennifer.
Yeah,
Connelly.
he's not saying that.
I'm not saying that. David Bowie, on the other hand, he's just androgynous enough to where I'm almost there. But
Gonna mute my microphone.
Lots of muting happening tonight. Okay. As long as it's not mutiny.
There you go.
That's perfect. Okay. Yeah. You know what? And I'm just going to echo that. It's not my classic maker, but it's just so, the attention to detail in this is so, the only thing I'll say to that is with the matte panes, I don't know. I don't think you could do it, but the clouds not moving distracts me. It distracts me in Princess Bride. It distracts me in anything from this year. And I get that's why they're like on a slant and there's lots of layers so that you don't really focus on that. But
maybe it just
like,
wasn't a windy day for the show.
Maybe just think about this. What's in the idea that maybe David Bowie, maybe Jaerod is not taking her to a real place. He's taking her to a manufactured, not real reality.
Fantasy realm.
Maybe think about the fact that there's freaking animals with interchangeable heads and hands and things, and maybe like if you can believe in that, you can believe that the clouds won't move. Just say.
Don't give me your logic right now, guys. Okay.
The clouds don't move at 13 o'clock, Francisco.
Come on.
Tony.
Yeah, man.
It looks like it's classic o'clock for you. So what's your classic maker?
So I hate to jump on and rip off Paul, but you're exactly right. The casting of this movie, and I didn't realize this. I did a little bit of research in the official Jim Henson visual
that's awesome.
guide to Labyrinth here, and I didn't realize some of the other casting that they had considered for the role of Jaerod.
Okay.
They had written out. So I have a copy of a handwritten note here that they had looked at. Yes, Sting, David Bowie, David Lee Roth from Van Halen.
Oh, okay.
Rod Stewart, Freddie Mercury, Prince, Ted Nugent, and Michael Jackson.
Really? Huh.
Now imagine that multiverse of madness.
Yeah.
Where Michael Jackson, where Captain EO is Jaerod.
Yeah, I was going to say Captain EO. He did a similar thing in that.
Right,
but okay.
That's right.
Huh.
But I think that you could not have this movie. For me, my classic maker is Jennifer Connelly, which I got to be careful about because I watched this movie when I was
Because she's
9,
14, Tony.
and she was
She's
14. But listen, that worked out for Anakin and Padme. All right, that was the way.
Oh my gosh!
And that was a happy ending. I think I never watched all the prequel trilogy, but no. But I fell in love immediately with Jennifer Connelly as a kid, and I have a really hard time watching it now as an adult, not going, and going, oh nope, she's 14. But that doesn't stop David Bowie, who's 39 in this movie.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
So
something
definitely.
that my wife
Yeah, the whole
actually
wedding
commented on.
dress scene was.
It's something for sure. But they cast this movie so well. Jennifer Connelly, she's a better Luke Skywalker than Luke Skywalker because she starts out as a really unlikable, whiny teenager who just wants to play with her toys and go to Tashi Station for power converters.
Yes.
And then she ends up in this place on a quest that she didn't ask for. And legitimately, by the end of this movie, she did what it took Luke to do in 3 movies. I mean, she became a total bad dude.
Well, now you're
down
just
the fabric of reality.
Now you're just stepping all over my classic maker, Tony. Thanks
I'm
a
so
lot
sorry.
for that.
No, I don't think it's not a step on. It's a step with. We're all
okay.
sync
Step
on this
with.
thing, and
Step
unity.
with. All right.
But great casting in this movie.
Well, and I will say it's not so much about the casting. I mean, I think it has a lot to do with how Jennifer Connelly played Sarah, but the character of Sarah is my classic maker. I love how, like you're just alluding to there, Tony, that she starts off as really selfish and
annoying,
snotty. No, well, I was gonna say snotty, just like only cares about herself. But she really throughout the process of the movie, and I can think of like key moments where this happened, where like where she becomes more sacrificial and stalwart even, and is like ready to just go up against big bad Jaerod. But like I remember in the beginning, she's like upset with Hoggle because she thinks she's betraying her, and then by the end of the movie, she's willing to forgive him, even though she knows he actually betrayed her. So I really appreciate that subtle growth, and throughout the movie, there's like these key moments where you sort of see that transition happen, and I really appreciated that. So.
One of the notes that I never really made a correlation with in that kind of character arc that she had was Jim Henson originally wrote that he wanted this movie to be kind of a cross between The Wizard of Oz and Poltergeist. And it written in his handwriting, man. I just saw it in the book. But I thought about this as kind of being a Wizard of Oz, like a Dorothy type adventure.
Oh, absolutely.
The young, naive, inward focused girl.
That's one of the books that she has in her bedroom.
Really? Wizard of Oz?
Right.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But then you think Poltergeist, man, that's a creepy movie.
Yeah.
But
I've never seen it, so I don't know. I imagine it is.
But Jaerod is Jared's a creepy character
it
too.
has a disobedient child in it, so don't watch it.
Yeah.
I think somebody eats chicken and pulls their face off. I haven't seen it since I was ridiculously too young to watch it. I don't like scary movies, and that movie's probably why.
That's fair.
But there's a very creepy and the relationship that they have is very compelling and off-putting at the same time.
Absolutely.
And I love that.
But so to what you were bringing up before, Chris, about she's a disobedient girl, and she is, but she grows to become something so much more, and that's why I appreciate it, because it would be boring if she started off. It'd be very like I think the term is Mary Sue. If she started off great and she ends great, there's no character growth. That's not interesting to watch. So it's those kids that never have consequences for their disobedience that I despise.
Like Toby for crying. Come on.
Yeah, geez, Toby. You need a spanking to stop crying.
I'll give you something to cry about.
Wow. We do not condone spanking infants. I do not condone that. Now, when they're older, maybe. Anyway, let's get to our next, the things we did. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry, guys. I thought we'd get to our dislike section, but alas, there is one more thing I forgot. Stunning and Brave. Each week, hosts Chris Cowan of the Babylon Bee and Nate Henderson of some boring budgeting job confess their privilege, spotlight stunning social media posts, and fabricate outrage, all while keeping you super woke and enlightened. They will make you laugh. That's right, you have no choice. Check out Stunning and Brave at stunningandbrave.net.
That's great, Francisco, and I'm glad we have Chris on here. But
Yes.
That sounds like a great show.
Yeah.
You guys should. I'm gonna check that out as soon as
You should,
I'm out.
Chris.
I'm liking,
This one.
subscribing, and leaving a 5-star review right now.
Perfect. Fantastic.
But point of order, what does Stunning and Brave have to do with Labyrinth?
Well, like you said, Chris is here reviewing Labyrinth with us.
Oh,
His co-host, Nate Henderson, is the voice of our very own Goblin King in our ship's logs. I mean, it's like, it might as well be like we're in Labyrinth right now.
Yeah.
If you
And Jennifer Connelly is both stunning and brave.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
Thank you
Okay, I'll
guys.
buy it.
All right, good. Would you also buy some trivia about Labyrinth, Paul?
Sure.
Okay, good. It'll be $5. No. Did you all realize that, and let me do this real quick just in case I actually get off my butt and make this into a short.
Edna mode.
Did you all realize that newspaper clippings showing Sarah's mother and a man resembling Jaerod can be seen on her bedroom mirror early in the movie? Supplemental material, including the novelization of Labyrinth, explain that this man is a fellow actor and Sarah's mother left her family for him. Needless to say, this detail adds a tremendous amount of significance to his role as the Goblin King. So my question to you is, if you could play a part in a stage performance of Labyrinth, what character would you like to play? So let's begin with Paul. What character would you like to play in the stage performance of Labyrinth?
Ludo. He's my favorite character. It'd be fun to be in that suit and everything.
Okay, all right, that's right. And you're certainly tall enough to
Sure.
take on that challenge. Awesome. How about you, Chris?
Oh, David Bowie, just for the hair.
Yes.
But
Yes.
But I could totally
Give me that
I
cod
could totally
piece.
I could totally ham it up for that dance magic baby dance song. So
Awesome. Fantastic. How about you, Tony? Who are you in Labyrinth, the Broadway musical?
I want to be the guy who sticks his arm behind Jaerod and juggles the little crystal orbs.
Oh,
Yes.
can you actually do that?
No, I cannot.
Oh.
That's why I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I wish I was cool enough to be Jaerod. That would be awesome. I mean, he's a great character, man. He's dangerous, he's deadly, but I don't think I could pull it off, man.
Totally fair.
I'd stand. I'd be happy if I could be the understudy for Hoggle.
Very good. Very good.
Great trivia, Francisco.
Thank you, Paul.
And if I can find my place while we insert another Edna.
Oh my gosh. Edna mode.
Oh, yeah.
Edna mode.
Let's see. Sorry, folks. All right, there. Yeah, thank you. And now that we've all had some trivial fun, let's find out what memories you, our awesome rewinders, had about Labyrinth.
All right, over on locals, Dale 71129 says, I remember talk how this was the collaboration of Jim Henson and George Lucas. I like David Bowie, but sometimes wonder if Alice Cooper would have been a better choice. As Jaerod, I think. I thought Jennifer Connelly was pretty, but overall, this would be on my bottom shelf, referring to the Bottom Shelf podcast.
D. Tungsten says Jennifer Connelly, quote, make the kid pee, unquote. I don't remember that.
I remember that either.
I think that's a line in Dance Magic Dance that people misunderstand. I think it's slap that baby, make him free, but a lot of people think it's make him pee. If I had to guess.
Thank you,
Okay.
Tom. That's probably it. That makes sense.
That's probably what the reference is to, is that okay. D. Tungsten goes on to say, the snail guy, the oubliette, David Bowie was in it. Nice Escher bit at the end. Oh, and the owl. I missed this movie back in the day. Went to watch it in the more modern times, maybe 20 years ago now. I didn't care for it too much. I've watched it a few times now. My wife loves it, so we have it. And I find it's just okay, despite some cool parts. I know a lot of people like this movie, and I probably would have liked it more had I seen it back in the day, so it earns a well-deserved nostalgic for me.
Oh, okay. Celeste of Geek Devotion says, I watched it for the first time when I was 6, so I don't remember a lot other than dancing, singing, and David Bowie's pants being far too tight.
Fabulous Lomax says, I remember that I've never seen it, but It has a Star Trek connection.
Oh.
Cheryl McFadden, I think it's Gates McFadden, actually.
He gets there in a second.
Oh,
Continue.
okay. Cheryl McFadden, fine. The director of choreography and the Muppet movement, and the person who taught David Bowie how to waltz for the film was supposed to also play the girl's mother. However, UK labor laws said that she couldn't do both. A few years later, under the name Gates McFadden, she was cast as the Dr. Beverly Crusher in the Star Trek Next Generation.
Indeed, indeed.
I'm glad that didn't happen because it would have messed me up if Sarah was Wesley Crusher's sister.
They're not connected, but okay. Over on Facebook, Michael Fraley says, okay, I have a very fond appreciation for Jim Henson and Jennifer Connelly. Not to mention that David Bowie was pretty grand in the role. Also, Gates McFadden, a.k.a. Dr. Crusher from Star Trek, did the choreography. All things considered, it's a weird film, but I like it.
Stanley Wright says David Bowie. That's about it.
Okay. And Ashley Ruiz says David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly did an incredible job in their respective roles. The fearsome Goblin King and the desperate older sister doing what she can to recover her brother after making a terrible mistake. All of the supporting characters add their own unique charm to the film, which only disappoints in its anticlimactic climax and out-of-place original songs. David Bowie is a talented songwriter, but the songs don't fit. Make it make sense!
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for sharing those memories.
And I'm gonna need whoever commented that to catch me outside. We'll throw hands.
That was Ashley Ruiz. So you know her, so you guys can throw
I know her. I know, we're throwing hands.
Yeah, okay.
I ain't afraid of anybody from Colorado.
But should you be afraid of the things we didn't like about Labyrinth? Let's bring up our
worst clothes.
And I'm going to kick us off with something I didn't like about Labyrinth. And that would be, and this is jumping pretty much to the end of the film. I don't understand why the bad guys come back to a room. I understand why the good guys reappear. Why you have, Hoggle, Ludo, Didymus. But why are a lot of the bad guys there in her room
the
dancing and
goblins
partying?
and the redhead.
The
Like,
goblins
she's happy to see those freaks that wanted to tear off her head. Like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
Can someone talk about it, make it make sense? Tony or Chris, you guys got any insight into that?
I would say it's because, Tony said something, but
It's a battle droids thing. The big boss dies, so everybody else, they just, all the evil in the land was gone. Everybody's just happy now. Because don't roll your eyes at me, Francisco.
I don't know if I buy
You should,
that,
because
but-
she didn't defeat the Goblin King. She just rescued her brother.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's still out there. The owl was outside the thing, the room. Yeah,
window?
so he's still alive. Yeah, whatever.
That thing that separates the room from the outside with the clear view.
Yeah, it opens sometimes, has
Yeah.
shades. What's that called?
Maybe it's French. I don't know.
Oh gosh, what were you
gonna
say, Chris?
It's more that because the whole story is kind of like, did it happen? Did it not? Was it in her imagination? Not. And so it's more like once she comes out of the labyrinth and goes back to her home, it's kind of like, this was just like a fanciful adventure, much like reading a book. And like even the bad guys in the book are your friends because they were part of that adventure. So when she's back in the room with all the characters, reminiscing on the adventure she just went on, just like a book she just read. That's
she wasn't reminiscing. She was dancing.
Last minute.
It wasn't a dream. It was real.
She was reminiscing. It's all confusing.
Yeah.
You know what? Honestly, that
know.
makes sense to me. I will buy that. I will buy that for $1. Tony, what's something you wouldn't buy for $1 that has to do with this movie?
If there was one scene that I could cut from this movie, and I've never liked it since I was a child, and as time has gone on, it has not grown on me. That is the Fireys and the song "Chilly Down."
Yes.
It does not fit in this movie. Like the man said, don't lose your head. It's just it just thematically doesn't fit, musically doesn't fit. It's just
and they're not good singers. Like,
no.
it's a horrible.
You don't like the way Elmo sings, Paul?
It's not Elmo singing.
Oh, well, he's one of the puppeteers and voices, so I figured he was, but maybe not. I don't know.
Well, Elmo's voice isn't.
Okay, fine, Paul. I'm curious, by show of hands, is the Fire Gang singing anyone else's Tragic Maker? Okay, just me. That's fine. But we'll talk about it.
Well,
later.
it's a dislike for me, but it's not a tragic maker.
Okay, well, why don't you expand more on why you disliked it, Paul?
I just said it's just horrible. It doesn't make. I don't like it. And
don't like it.
unfortunately, it was ahead of its time with the green screen or the blue
Yeah,
screen or whatever.
yeah. And how
But
they dance and
unfortunately,
stuff,
it doesn't hold up.
Yeah, I completely agree. Did you have any more thoughts on that, Tony?
No, it doesn't hold up. The rest of the movie is so masterful in what it does, and then all of a sudden, right in the middle of it, we're in like the never-ending story 2, and it just doesn't work out.
It does not. I think you could cut that. I totally agree. You could cut that, and you'd be fine. Chris, what would you cut from this film, and it'd be fine?
Cut it so much as I'd add extra layers to it, and that's David Bowie's tight pants.
So maybe only shoot him from the waist up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But most of the puppets are shorter than him, Paul. So I don't think that'll work.
To be honest, that scene felt very much in line with the movie that is Labyrinth, because there's just a lot of I came away from that movie with a lot of questions. There's just a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. Why are David Bowie's pants so tight? What is the deal with those truth and lies guards, anatomically speaking? Because you got like one guy on top and you got another guy, and they're covered with that card, and I'm afraid to know what's behind that giant card, because the anatomy there, something's not right. Also,
Chris,
let
me just jump in and say that in the credits, they're only listed as 2 different characters. So in the novelization, they all have 4 names because Sarah names them 4 different names. But in the credits, they're only 2 characters. So I think that's a weird, like, I got a head coming out of my crotch kind of anatomy there. So it's best that they hold those doors so you don't see.
Yes.
Like I said,
absolutely.
I'm afraid to know what's behind this, because it was concerning. Also, I'm pretty sure that was an anus in the Bog of Eternal Stench.
Absolutely. Many of them.
Oh,
yes.
what? I never got that, but thanks. Now I can't unsee that.
You will never unsee it.
Nope.
So I'm just saying. So I guess my thing for this, my first complaint is I have a lot of anatomical questions that I do about Labyrinth.
Okay. All right. So you need sort of like a Grey's Anatomy for Labyrinth to sort of flesh out these questions you have.
I think I specifically don't want. I have I have a lot of questions, and I want none of the answers.
Okay. Wow. Well, I want an answer to what Paul's next dislike is. So how about you give me that, Paul?
This was going to be my first dislike, but we jumped ahead with that other song
with the Fire Gang song,
pointless. But basically, that opening intro, I thought they could have done the credits while she was running through the rain. Like, why extend the movie even longer?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Now, and with that fake CGI owl, which was great back in the day. I mean, back in the 80s on our CRT TV screen when taping it off of HBO, it looked great.
Yes.
But this time watching it, it was so boring. It reminded us of another song of another movie about with a bird flying through the credits, and that was Lady Hawk. So we literally turned off Labyrinth and watched Lady Hawk instead.
Really? Like you're gonna watch this, but you're like, let's watch Lady Hawk instead.
We did, yes.
Did you end up watching this film? Oh no,
yeah,
you watched
the next day.
The 1990s Labyrinth or something.
No, yeah, and then I had to rewatch this one. So eventually we got there.
Oh well, that's good. Okay, so the CG owl and the long credit sequence.
Unfortunately, the CG owl was way ahead of its time. One of the first characters, the fully animated characters in a movie, doesn't hold up, but it also makes it extra long. Just put the credits in the rain.
Yeah, I would totally be behind that, Paul. Let's go to Tony next. What's something else you don't like about Labyrinth?
This is a stupid, simple one. It bothers me every time. Nobody is going to hell over this, but there's some dialogue choices and it's specifically in the context of between Sarah and her parents. And I don't know if they wrote it oddly to make her seem overly dramatic, but just some of the choices of how, like, the syntax of what she says, you know. Yeah. Oh, you really did want to talk to me, didn't you? Practically broke down the door. Like,
Yeah, I'm like, are you being sarcastic? I couldn't quite tell what she was trying to do.
You're a guy. You can never tell a teenage girl.
Wow.
You're 100% right. But there's just something about the way that was phrased and worded. It just seemed very awkward. And it's only the interaction between the very unnecessary dialogue between Dad and her.
Also, talking about that dialogue, what's the deal with like the dad telling his wife, Sarah's stepmother, "I'll talk to her. We're leaving for the night." How is that talking to her?
Yeah, just that whole thing was just. Maybe there's an unedited version, like a director's cut somewhere, where that's just the most poignant scene in the movie. You know, people are weeping and run into the altar, but no, it's not happening.
Wow. Yeah, I totally get that, Tony, as a dislike. Something that I didn't like that could be a revision, revising that dialogue. I feel like the movie would have been even more. The climax would have. It's not really the climax. The climax, like we were saying before, is the MC Escher painting. But before that, the what's it called? The pen ultimate climax, the pen climax, whatever you want to call it, where they're in Goblin City and you have that mecha goblin thing. I wish that there would have been the mecha goblin would have been the end, the climax of that whole sequence. Like they got in the city, then all the guys are coming around, all the goblins they have to get away from, and then they get to the mecha goblin, and they're having to deal with that, and that's when Hoggle comes in and rescues them. I think that would have made it even more poignant that he comes in when at the dire straits, and then he commands the mecha goblin. This is Francisco Fabio's fan fiction, by the way. He controls mecha goblin and like takes out all the armies. I think that would have been a much better way to get rid of the armies and have a much more cool ending to that whole sequence. So I don't know why they started with it.
I've never thought about that. I agree. And instead what we got was kind of a Deus Ex Machina, Ludo.
Yes, with all the rocks. And I think that worked great for the Swamp of Eternal Stench. I think that's all I needed from his rock powers. I think that would have been great to have gone across that. But then, at the end, I'm like, okay, I would much rather what I said. Chris, why don't you give us something that you would say to make this movie better before we get to our tragic makers?
As David Bowie is, I feel like the soundtrack left much to be desired, especially with the freaking like it's that 80s synth. Like I get that was big at the time. That's just like a artifact from the 80s. But it was pretty hard to stomach sometimes. Just how hard they hit that leaned into synth for the soundtrack. It was just a little rough for me.
Okay, that's fair. I mean I liked what Trevor Jones did with the score, which even including the synth. But yeah, I could see I agree with my wife that the David Bowie songs didn't seem to. Yeah, exactly. And then. Yeah. No, wait. What? No, I will never agree. Ha ha ha. Hear that, Ashley? But
what?
I don't know. I'm trying to be.
I'm
crashing and burning is what's happening right now. I'm just like. I'm gonna be in the bog of eternal stench now. Anyway, so remind me again, Chris. What was your dislike?
The music.
The music. Okay. I just got all sort of
synth,
lost.
Especially the synth.
Okay, the synth music.
Are you referring specifically to like the score or the David Bowie songs, or a little bit of both?
Mainly the score. Like I can kind of forgive it a little bit more when it's mixed in with the David Bowie songs. But when it was just used like synth as the score, wasn't my favorite.
I think
that's totally fair.
The composer, did you say his name was Trevor Jones?
Yes.
Yeah, the composer also did the music for Dark Crystal, and I think it was an intentional choice that they wanted to make it not quite as immersive in period. They wanted to bring that sort of rock opera Jesus Christ Superstar, sort of modern instruments into it as a hybridized version of the soundtrack. So that was an intentional choice that he and Jim Henson made. I agree that sometimes it sounds a little dated.
Yeah, it dates it for sure.
But again, that's when I don't know how old the average age of the panel is here, but I'm
41. Paul's in his mid 40s. Chris is in his late 30s. Is that accurate? Yeah,
he's a baby. Look at him.
I'm not a baby.
I just remember it doesn't seem as out of place because I was there. I remember it from the time, so I carry that sort of that age with me. So it didn't bother me as much. But that's exactly, I think a younger generation would have a really hard time hearing that and appreciating it if that wasn't the world that they lived in.
So Tony, you were there before the dark times, before the Empire.
Don't quote the old
there,
magic me
Gandalf.
witch. I was there when it was written. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, speaking of old witches, let's talk about our tragic makers for this film. And let's start with Chris. What did you hate most about Labyrinth?
Oh, man. You guys are going to hate me for this. But I thought...
I hate Jennifer Connelly. Jared's horrible.
Yes, actually.
Oh, that's actually...
Yes.
Love it.
Okay. Well, expand. Why do you think so? Yeah.
Okay. I felt like, kind of to Tony's point about what makes the Muppets Christmas Carol so great, where like Michael Caine is a fantastic actor and he's interacting with these puppets and it's like they're all the same. This did not feel like that. That felt very much like, okay, well, there's David Bowie singing a weird song right now, and then there's Jennifer Connelly and her acting and the dialogue doesn't make sense. Like exactly like you're talking about, that line where she's like, oh, you're not even gonna like try it. I don't remember what the line is, but you're not even gonna try, and then those weird lines where she's like, King, Goblin King, like, it's just not believable. She's not believable as a character, and she's not likable. And I get that's like, I get that's like her story arc. But if you're going to introduce a character who needs to grow, you want your audience to care about them and want to see
root for them
grow.
in some way.
In order to do that, you need to insert something in the beginning that makes her a little bit likable, that makes her a little bit sympathetic, that makes people want to see her overcome her other flaws. And I did not see those.
She tries to bring the dog in from the rain, but the mom won't let her.
That's weak sauce. That is weak sauce.
That's actually more poignant than I never even noticed that, but you're right.
Yeah, you are right. I don't think that would do it, though. I feel like, I don't know what would do it, but I feel like that is a good point, though.
See, I just thought it was bad dialogue. I didn't blame Jennifer Connelly on that, or bad directing too. Now you're like in the ballroom dancing. Now look for the Goblin King and look at him in a weird way. Like,
no, I'll totally throw Jim. I think it was Jennifer Connelly as much as it was probably Jim Henson. Not being used to directing humans.
Oh yeah, that could very well be.
That could totally be it. I totally forgot about the dog coming in from the rain thing, and I think that might have been that save the cat kind of moment. That could have built some sympathy, but it wasn't strong.
But then she yells at the dog, "Go to the garage!"
You know what would have made that better for me and like fixated in my mind as they save the cat moment? If she actually took what's its name? Not Ambrosius. I know it's the same dog, but Merlin to the garage, wiped him down, told him, like, I don't know, said something sympathetic to the dog. I'm sorry she's like this. I wish you could have just come in. And then proceed the movie.
But I'm gonna halfway agree with you, Chris, but in the fact that I agree that she is a total unlikable character. I didn't see character growth in her. I saw an immediate difference between when the baby disappeared versus there's no like, oh, look at this arc. There's like, she's a spoiled brat, and then all of a sudden when the kid disappears, she's like, no, I'll go through the labyrinth, I'll save him. And from that point on, she's been gung-ho. At least that's the way I saw it.
I'm going to disagree. I mean, there's several points where, like, in the oubliette, or not the oubliette, but she's going through it, and then she keeps saying things aren't fair, and then she finally stops saying that. She is realizing, okay, I just have to do
learning, but but that's not a life character, trait she's taken on. She's
I feel like
looking at
she's
the
realizing
labyrinth that way.
She's realizing I have to figure this out. I can't just
That's
complain
what
all
they
the
want
time.
you to think.
These writers, they just want you to think she's growing.
Yeah.
This fictional character.
I see.
She's
Big
not.
Muppet
She's
got
still
to
the
you.
same. Yeah.
Big Muppet. God.
Big Muppet. You're in deep in the pockets of Big Muppet. I think. I think there are definitely, like, it hits some points of character development.
Yeah.
But you're right, they are kind of shallow.
Yeah, all right.
Like the whole, like, you don't have power over me thing feels a little
That
weird,
I
'cause
would,
it's
yes.
Like,
yes.
because it's like, was that really the struggle at the beginning? Was that the conflict that was introduced at the beginning? No.
Not
the
really,
conflict that
no,
was introduced at the beginning was that I don't like my family, and I don't like being responsible for my little kid, and I want to live in this fantasy world. And so I guess you could stretch it to be like, okay, the Goblin King, like, represents the fantasy world, and it she's releasing that power over it, but it's
There's
weak.
not a direct connection.
It's not a direct connection. But I would say there was some.
I
Yeah.
think they were going for something there, with the unpacking of the backstory with her mom and that whole thing. You see the pictures of her mom, the autograph pictures of her mom, the things like that in the room. There's sort of this idealized version of what she could have been or what she aspired to be, and I think that she blamed everybody else for her problems. She blamed everybody for her situation, and there was a very internal I'm the main character energy, but in the most negative way.
Oh yeah.
And that's the thing, but she had that strength and she had that ability to overcome.
Yes.
She just had to realize that her circumstances, the decisions that other people made and the things that other people did that affected her negatively don't have power over her, that she does have the ability to be the hero no matter what is thrown at her, no matter where she's put. Instead of saying, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair, finally she said, it doesn't matter if it's not fair. You have no power over me. And I think there is kind of it's very loose. It's very children's book. I get it. I mean, you're not looking for some kind of profound, like, let me just.
This isn't Jaerod Tolkien. Jeez, what the deal?
Right. But
I
she
gotta
understands.
say, Tony, I'm just saying, like, in children's movies now, the bar has been set so freaking high thanks to Pixar. I just watched Puss in Boots and nearly cried. So I am expecting
Oh
that.
wow. Like, seriously, you almost cried at it?
I got, somebody was cutting onions in the theater. It wasn't.
That's fair.
Saying, it was a good movie, and it was deep. But I also recognize this is 80s, and you can't have the same expectations.
It was a simpler time.
Here's one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who's tragic? I have honestly forgotten whose tragic maker we were on. Was that yours, Chris?
This was
you
mine.
did, like, Jennifer Connelly. Yeah, that's it.
Well, it was more like and David Bowie. Like, why is the Goblin King not a goblin? I don't understand.
Okay,
that.
you know what?
You just
I
Excellent
am
point,
unsubscribing right now from the Sunny and Brave podcast. 1 star, would not rate. No, I'm kidding.
David Bowie fan 123 or 1337. I hate this podcast.
No, so kind of the backstory of that was that he didn't want to be the Goblin King, that he was pulled in sort of how she was pulled in and brought into this world. That was kind of the unspoken mythology and the development of the character that David Bowie kind of worked
interesting.
up, was that he was the reluctant Goblin King, and that's why he wanted companionship. That's why he wanted somebody else to come in and be like him,
Like a Peter Pan almost.
Yeah, so he was bored and he was cruel
and creepier
because
he's way older.
Yes, yeah. Well, isn't Peter Pan really technically a lot older than Wendy, but he just hasn't aged?
Thank you for ruining that book for me now too.
Anyway, I want to say one more thing about Sarah's character, and then because this is something that's really resonated with me when I think a lot of you look at the landscape of female heroes, at least in from in the late 2010s to now, and the way I sort of see it is there's a lot of like, we could write this as a male character, but let's just make the male character female instead of like, let's actually make a hero that's a female character. And with this, like something that's very, I mean, cancel me, whatever. I feel like something that's very emblematic or very distinct about women is their call to make relationship. Like God made them to make relationships. I mean, that's why they birth children. And so in this,
that's why they birth children. I thought they were impregnated.
That's a symbol of it, Paul.
Oh.
In this, she doesn't want relationship. She wants Tony. Tony, stay here.
Thank you very much. No. Oh no. I'm okay with that.
She wants Toby out of her life. She doesn't like her mom. And then as she progresses through this movie, she's building relationships with all these characters that then culminates in her wanting Toby in her life again. She becomes Lancelot. So I feel like this is a great example of a feminine hero. So that's all I'll say about that. Yes, there could be better ways of like her in the beginning, giving her something to root for, her not really working with some of the puppeteering and not being directed well, all that I will give you. This isn't a perfect case. I just think that's something that should be appreciated because I saw it, maybe no one else did, but I wanted to say that before I get like really lay into this movie with my trash maker. But before we get there, Tony, what did you hate most about Labyrinth?
Yeah, as a female character, which I think is pretty rare, especially in that day when everything was kind of marketed towards how many action figures can you sell.
Yes.
For a young woman to be the lead in a fantasy story and not just the with me as always. It was a very cool, inspiring kind of break the mold thing. However, I don't know what the push was for over sexualizing her. And it was intentional because, well, like I said, I was reading some of.
I think they showed her ankle once.
No, I'm not talking. I'm not talking like they were making her promiscuous or anything like that. But part of her journey from the conception of this movie was that she would be kind of discovering her sexuality in this.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's uncomfortable for me because she definitely is young. David Bowie is older, and I get the idea that he kind of represents that rock star.
But it's apparent that she has daddy issues.
Clearly,
for sure.
But the whole thing with the one scene in the movie, which when I was a kid I was bored by, as the worlds fall down, the world falls down. I just thought, okay, this is a slow part of the movie, and it's kind of weird. But now I'm just so uncomfortable about it because of the age difference. I'm uncomfortable about it because she's a kid.
That's in the crystal ball when they're in that dance. Okay.
She's got the big hair and the big Lucy dress and stuff like that. But the whole symbolism of the forbidden fruit, and it's a peach, which is kind of symbolic for sexuality, and there's a lot of suggestive visuals in the masquerade ball, and it's very nightmarish and eyes wide shutish. It's really, really uncomfortable. And I understand that's. You can watch plenty of fantasy movies or read plenty of fantasy books where that happens. It's just a little weird for me because she's a young teenager, and so that's just something I have a hard time connecting the dots on that one.
Yeah. Young teenagers don't struggle with sexuality. That's
no, hormones don't play a part. I will say, I feel like that's something she overcome. Where like if that bit from, and I got that bit from the trivia about IMDb, her mom going to be with this David Bowie character, whoever it was. I feel like that actually shows how she doesn't have to. You don't have to give in to those sexual urges even as a kid. But I still get how that's uncomfortable for being initially like a kid's movie. But
I get it. I'm with you. I agree with you. But just the idea that a bunch of old men wrote this movie for a young girl to play that scene out, that's a little weird.
Okay. All right. I cannot disagree. Disagree. Thank you. That's the word. What's that thing that you look out of? It's in the wall. I don't know what that's called.
Actually, that goes right into my tragic maker.
Perfect. Go for it, Paul.
Tony is saying that basically it's too adult. There's things that are too adult for this movie. I think there are things that are too
kiddie for it. Oh, did Paul pause for you guys at all?
I guess we'll never find. He paused.
The goblins took him away right now.
All right, let me try again.
Yeah, it looks like you're back, Paul. Okay, good.
All right. So Tony was saying things in this film that are too adult. I thought there were things that are in this movie that are too kiddie.
Like Hoggle peeing in the pool.
Well, I no.
Okay, fine. I'm trying to help you, Paul, but go ahead.
No, but I don't think this movie was made for kids. I thought it was for one of those for the family, or maybe even these, like Tony was saying, they focus on some very more mature themes. So they should have taken away the kid-like-esque, because it was dark, and you don't want to take kids to these nightmares. I mean, just look for the people watching the video, these goblins behind me. You know, there's some scary stuff you don't want to take kids to, but especially when you get to the climactic scene in the Goblin City, where it's just like some of the slapstick is so kid-like, and others are like when the ball cannon gets shot, the ball says, "Did I hit something? Yes, no." It's, a lot of the humor is too childlike for me. So I wish they would have picked a lane, and I wish they would have picked the more, unlike Tony, I wish they would have picked the more adult theme, like play for the adults more.
Adult and dark. I just, don't over sexualize 14-year-olds. Just kind of
That's fine. I can agree with you on that. But let's go more adult dark, and I think this movie would have been better off for it.
Or fairy tales are certainly dark, so.
So don't.
Let's go with Chris. What were you going to say, Chris?
I was just going to say, don't worry, Paul. There is Pan's Labyrinth for you.
So there we go. That is dark. Yes.
That is everything you're looking for. So.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And Tony, what were you going to say?
No, I think that it could have gone either way. Like, pick a lane, exactly like Paul said. If you wanted to kind of make it a little more kiddie, I think it would have been better, kind of just a touch edgier, not as dark as Dark Crystal, which was a pretty depressing movie. But
absolutely,
but just slide it up just a little tiny bit and balance it out. I agree 100%.
Yeah. And I mean, the signature thing that would have made this movie better that we could have removed is the fire dance gang thing that seemed out of place, which was My Tragic Maker, which we already went over. So with that, guys, now that we've entered all our trajectories into the firing computer, Alice, do you have a firing solution for us?
Firing solution complete. Rating salvo at the ready. On your mark.
All right, it's time for the moment of truth. Do we rate Labyrinth a classic? We recommend anyone go see this film, whether or not they've seen it before. A nostalgic, it's worth your time to revisit if you saw it as a kid or a young adult. But if you've never seen it before, skip it and go to something else. Or is it a tragic? We don't recommend it for anyone. If you've never seen it before, keep it that way. And if you have seen it before, don't sully any good memories you have of them with a rewatch. So, Tony, you had predicted nostalgic for Labyrinth. Where did it finally end up for you after your watch?
It's a classic.
Classic.
It's so beautifully made. And it has so few movies that could be considered true peers to it. So, if you're looking for a puppet-based rock opera fantasy movie with a female protagonist, I mean, I dare you to find its equal. So.
Because there's only one of them. No, I don't know. But.
And as long as there's Hot Topic kids, there's going to be somebody to watch the movie Labyrinth. So I say classic with a huzzah.
All right. Very good. Chris, you also predicted nostalgic. Where did Labyrinth end up for you?
And see, this is a tough one. Am I supposed to rate this just based on my own personal experience with it, or am I saying what I think other people's?
So usually
it depends.
You get to pick. I usually base it on my experience. Paul tends to pick based on other people's experience. So you can pick whichever you want.
I think so. If I'm rating it just for myself, I would probably honestly put it as tragic.
Oh wow! Okay.
I don't think it works for like going back and watching it. But the introduction to it was a little bit older. I wasn't a 9-year-old crushing on Jennifer Connelly. I was a 14-year-old crushing on David Bowie, and it.
Of course, I mean, it makes sense.
I'm kidding.
That's awesome.
But I think for the sake of, if I'm just objectively just being like, okay, in general, the people who grew up with this movie movie, it holds a special place in their hearts. I think that seems to be the case for the most part, and I get that, and so I think I'm gonna lean into nostalgic just for general purpose.
Okay.
If you grew up watching this movie, it's worth going back and visiting again. Unlike Dragonheart.
We almost had to send Big Muppet after you.
Oh my! How dare you besmirch my beloved Dragonheart, Chris? Oh my!
The only good thing about that movie is the theme.
Dragonheart?
We reviewed it in the 100s. Yeah.
Is that the best you can do?
Oh.
Oh my goodness. So before we get to me and Paul's ratings, now starting in the new year, our reflex capacitors at the $5 level get to add to a rating. They get to be part of this final rating as well. They get to vote, and then we collectively pull their votes together to see what their final rating for the movies and games we cover are. And for the Labyrinth, they all rated Labyrinth nostalgic when it's all averaged out. So we have so far a classic and 2 nostalgics. Paul, what was your final rating given you predicted nostalgic? Where did it end up for you? Sigh is not a rating, Paul. Sorry.
I enjoyed this better than the last time I watched. I think Tony was saying that he enjoys it more each time that he watches it. There's more things to appreciate that. And so, you know what? I'm going to say nostalgic.
Nostalgic, okay.
Because I don't know when the next time I'm going to put it on. It may be another 10 to 20 years.
That's fair. That's fair.
If not ever. But if I don't ever watch it again, that's a mistake in my book. But I know that if you enjoy puppetry, this is a must. If you haven't seen this and you enjoy puppetry, I will say this is a must.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
all right.
Definitely.
Well, that is 3 nostalgics, so mine rating doesn't really, won't really make the difference. But I will say that for me,
Tony, wait, wasn't Tony classic?
Yeah, but
Tony
we already have 3 nostalgics, and we only have 1 classic. So even if whatever I rate it, it's going to be nostalgic. So because we do the majority, we don't do averages. We just do the majority.
Yeah.
For the final rating. But yeah, spoiler. But I will say, let me. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, this bad boy.
Oh, no. Here we go.
What's that called? The filibuster?
Yes, exactly. I was about to say, for people who've never seen that movie, that means Francisco's going to go on a long rant.
No, I'm not going to. But I do want to say that, much like Tony, I see there's more in this movie I appreciate each time I watch it. I really enjoyed it this time. I'm going to rate it classic. My kids have no interest in seeing it, so that maybe calls into question. I think that's probably a good idea that you guys rate it nostalgic, because those are just my own personal feelings to rate it classic. That may not be the zeitgeist of everyone, but I really love this movie, especially each time I see it. So, according to the Retro Rewind podcast, though, we rate the Labyrinth from 1986, Paul. 1986's Labyrinth, a disputed nostalgic film. We'd recommend going and seeing it again if you've seen it before, but if you've never seen it before, go watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Go do that. But now it's time to get back to our own time. Oh, or can we even? Good old 20XX?
20XX? We gotta save my mom!
Receiving incoming transmission.
That's a good point. Why are we going to 20XX? We gotta save your mom. But we also have to hear from you guys, and thank you all, our reflex capacitors, without which we would not be able to travel back to 1986 to begin with, namely Deborah Powers, Geek Devotions, Drew of the Cell Cache, Ashley Ruiz, Kennethan, Fabulous Lomax, Rosie Lomax, That's Our Babo, D. Tungsten, Dale, Mr. Lost, Daryl Hafner, Cool Deluxe, in addition to 2 other awesome patrons as well. And if you're listening to this and you're like, wait, where's my name there? Well, I tried to send out communications on Patreon. We have moved away from Patreon, and we are now on mainly locals and Subscribestar, and our pricing structure is different for support. So now you essentially we ask that you give or support us at the $5 level to have a shout out, but you get lots of other things in addition to that. So hopefully if you can support us there, great. If not, no worries. Hopefully you still enjoy listening to the show. But thank you everyone for your gigawatts and supporting us that way.
Are you done?
Okay. That was my actual filibuster. Okay,
go over to where, Francisco?
Oh yeah, you might want to know that. Go retrorewindpodcast.com/support.
Do you know what reminds me of the babe with the power? That this stream is sponsored by pauljpowers.com.
And while we're thanking people, we also want to give a big, but not too
big
close hug.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna try to, I was gonna say a big, magic hug, but not too close of a hug, because of the tight pants.
Wow.
To Tony and Chris for supporting us with their thoughts on Labyrinth. So we'll go around alphabetically. Chris Cowan, how could people find you online, and what you got going on?
All right. What you got going on? I'm here for the big hug. I don't care how just saying. Yeah, you can, as we mentioned, .net, check it out.
StunningandBrave.net, is that what you said?
Yeah, that's my podcast.
It went out for me, so
check it out.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, I don't know why I'm having audio issues, but yeah, check out Stunning and Brave. We're a comedy podcast. We make fun of really everybody, and kind of especially anyone posting dumb stuff on social media, which is so hard to find these days. So, check that out.
It's just so cogent.
Yeah, but yeah, it's always awesome to be on the show with you guys. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for being here so much, Chris.
Yeah. And Tony, where can people find you online? And is there anything cool you got going on?
Well, just want to let you know that when you're a fat guy, all your pants are David Bowie tight, whether you want to be or not.
Wow.
It just happens. You can find me on basically anywhere online. Just look up Tony Talavera, or you can find me more directly by looking up the Nerd of Godcast, that place where Christ culture and nerd culture finds sweet, sweet two-player co-op at Nerd of Godcast, basically on any social media platform. You can listen to us anywhere fine podcasts are consumed, or you can join our online small group on Facebook, the Nerd of God Squad, and you can go straight there by going to nogsquad.com.
Awesome, Tony. Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you so much to my not too tight pants wearing co-host Paul J. Powers and friend. And thank you all you rewinders, new or old, for another fun voyage.
You're welcome. And you can find me, pauljpowers.com, at pauljpowers.com.
And you can find me on our Discord for show announcements, or just to say hi. Join us there at retrorewindpodcast.com/Discord. Edna mode, because I forgot another, so I need deception.
Edna mode.
And I need culture box. I forgot those two somehow, so I'll put those in post-show.
You ready for me?
Yes, go for it.
Okay. And as Nathan just said, we are now part of the Culture Box Media Network. Find all the shows unpacking truth through story, comedy, and geekery at culturebox.media. And with that, Captain, it looks like we need to wait for the next riddle to unlock.
That darn Jaerod. All right, well, thank you, EXO, and thank you all for listening. We pray you are more joyful today than when you first hit play. But like a Pokemon, we got to catch you for the next episode, wherever that's going to be. Check out our next ship's log, and maybe you can help us figure out what it should be on the next episode of the Retro Rewind Podcast.
Retro Rewind mission complete. Proceed to nav point Omega and return to base.
Mo, don't turn to base. Go save my mom.
Oh, yeah, we need to save her mom.
But should you need us? Yes. Should you need us?
I'll call. Thank you, all of you.
And scene. Awesome. So if you guys need to use the restroom, get some water before you start spiritual speculation, now's the perfect time to do that. Thank you, Ashley and D Tungsten, everyone who's been just hanging out. You guys have been chatting. It's been awesome. Sorry I couldn't be reading most of it, but it's so cool to see you guys here and talking away.
Yes, the nav point Amiga, D Tungsten said.
Amiga? Oh, Amiga. Come on,
Amiga.
Let's see. I am the Salvo Authority King. Wow.
Someone's got to be. Why not?
Wow. Okay, so I guess Tony and Chris, you're good to go. Paul, do you need to take a break or anything? Okay. All right, guys, then we'll go ahead and start spiritual speculation here. And to remind me, Tony, you had something. I have two things. Paul, you didn't have anything. And Chris, you were going to talk about how we're all in the labyrinth before Jesus, right? No.
Nah.
He wasted that joke earlier.
Yeah.
Wait, that was a joke?
No.
Now I'm confused. Anyway.
Much like this movie.
I'm about to start, Paul.
Sorry.
All right. Okay. My thing is going to be... Okay, never mind. I'll save it for when we're recording.
Good. We're still recording, but okay. Welcome, Reflex Capacitors, to another spiritual speculation where we talk about the spiritual themes and questions that the movies we discussed on the podcast prompt us to think about while we're watching them. This discussion pairs with I was going to do a wine, but I don't know anything about wine. It pairs with our episode on Labyrinth, which you can check out our review at retroreonpodcast.com/269. But before we get into the spiritual themes from Labyrinth, let's go around real quick and say who we are, what our spiritual life was like growing up, and what we currently believe today. So I'll start. My name is Francisco. I was raised Presbyterian and currently a non-denominational Protestant Christian. Let's go with Chris next.
All right, my name is Chris. I was raised in the non-denominational denomination known as Calvary. Today I consider myself actually non-denominational.
Fancy. How about you, Tony?
I did not grow up in a spiritual context till I was a young teenager when I found Jesus quite by accident.
Oh, really?
And I currently serve as the pastor of Sanctuary Church Longwood, a part of the Church of God of Cleveland, Tennessee, a blended Pentecostal congregation.
Very awesome. And
Wait,
Paul, I imagine
you could just call yourself. You could just call yourself the Church of God. Like you could just that wasn't taken already. You could. Just...
Yeah,
that's savage.
The website was right there, man. We didn't even have to go on .gov.org.cc.
Wish I thought of that. Dang it.
Right? Jeez. Next time I look up, I'm going to call mine. This is God's church. Anyway, Paul, did you happen upon Jesus just by accident in a maze?
Yeah, actually, I was tired of my little brother, and the Goblin King carried him away, and I was searching through a labyrinth, which actually led me to the center. Was my heart, and I needed to ask Jesus into my heart there.
Hallelujah.
So I did.
Wow. Okay, good to know, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with Tony. What's something that watching this film you're like, you know what, this resonates with me in a spiritual way?
Sometimes it's not about finding the answer. Sometimes it's about asking the right questions. I don't know how deeply spiritual this is, but I always think
you can go as deep as you want.
And I don't know that I have something super spiritual about this. This is my B-roll spiritual.
Okay.
My A-list answer I have in my back pocket in case this one flops. But there's a great scene in this movie when as lost as she can be, young Sarah says, "There's no way to turn. There's no way to go. I don't know where I'm supposed to be going." And a little worm comes out and says, "Oh, there's all kinds of turns. You just have to know where you're looking." And she finds the turn and she goes, and he says, "No, don't go that way. Never go that way." And then she's like, "Thanks." And she goes the other way. And he goes, "Oh, she'd have gone that way. She'd have gone straight to that castle."
Yeah, I hate that moment so much each time.
And it's so painful. But what she was looking for was a path but what she didn't do was ask the right questions of which is the right path. And
Yeah,
the Bible
yeah.
says, look, there's many ways, right? Wide is the way and broad is the gate, you know, like that leads to destruction, but there's a narrow way. Ask the right questions when you're following Jesus. He's not not afraid of your questions. He's not afraid of your curiosity. He put curiosity in your heart. So ask God, trust God. When you're talking to God, take the time to listen to God, because having that information, having that well-rounded understanding of his word and his character can keep you from going that way. Never go that way. And basically leads you right to the castle at the center of your heart. Amen.
But I can hear people that may be new to the faith, or maybe
You can hear them?
Yes, calling out like a million cries all at once, and then quiet all at once. No, saying like, "Well, I never hear God talk to me. What do you mean God can speak to you? How do you hear God?" I'm just curious how you would answer that, Tony.
That's a great question. There is the number one way that we hear God, the number one way that God speaks to us is through his word. And that's, to me, understanding the scripture and reading it in its context and knowing God's character is one of the greatest and easiest ways to kind of know how to follow God and know what he would speak to you. But I also believe that prayer is really, in its most simplest definition, is paying attention to God. And God can communicate to you. I mean, could God come out and say, "I am the Lord"? You know, yeah, absolutely he could.
Yeah.
But a lot of times there is a still small voice of the Holy Spirit that speaks to your heart in a way that you can usually tell the difference, because it's almost never telling you the thing that you want to do or that you're super comfortable doing. If God speaks to me and tells me to do something that I feel like I want to do and is my happy place, I usually say, yeah, that's probably not God. But I do believe that God can speak to your heart. It's just a matter of learning how to listen. So I have only listened to your podcast. I've never seen your faces while you were speaking.
Well,
so now I know.
Oh, wow.
So it was always, I never really knew who was talking. It took me a while of listening before I could figure out whose voice was whose.
Yeah.
And go, okay, now I know Francisco. Now I know Paul. And now seeing you, it makes it even easier. I think that's a kind of a snapshot of our relationship with God. The more you listen, the more you can discern his voice as opposed to the noise and the distraction.
Yeah, or your own voice. I'm going to push back slightly on that, because I've noticed sometimes God, if I'm doing listening prayer, and like God will say, yeah, go forward with that thing that you want to do. I mean, and it's for instance, like marrying Ashley, my wife, it seemed like that was a very God-led thing, but I was in prayer about it. And it's like, I don't think it's always like the thing you detest doing is the thing God wants you to do. I think it's sometimes it is what you're desiring. And I think especially if the more I forget if it's a proverb or where this is in the Bible, but it's trust God or love God, and he'll give you the desires of your heart. Because the more you're in tune with God, the more your desires will be his. So you will naturally want the things things you do desire.
Psalm 37:4.
Thank you, Paul.
And I'll tell you this, that probably is just a better indicator of where your starting point is than mine.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair.
You're probably way holier than I am in real life. So
I mean, yes, I have. I have 4 holes in me right now.
I was
my
about to say,
surgery.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Some of us give God the uphill roll there, like he's got to work a little harder on us.
No, I think to Tony's point, like anytime God's voice seems to sound a lot like what you want to be, what you want to be hearing, it's a good opportunity to really challenge yourself and make sure, okay, this sounds like what I really want. So I should be careful. It doesn't mean it's not God, but it does.
Yeah.
I think it's always good to be cautious about that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tony.
It's like the flipping the coin trick. You flip a coin not to decide which thing to do, but you flip a coin to decide if you're disappointed at one or the other. So you can determine which one you really wanted.
Yeah,
a lot of times when I pray, it's like, well, I really want this. And I can absolutely coerce myself into believing that God wants that my will be done.
Yeah. And I will say, real quick, I just want to cap this off, is that I would say that if it's something that is not like the Bible doesn't say don't do this, then and you're unsure, definitely keep seeking God in prayer, and also ask brothers and sisters in Christ, like your pastors or other people you trust, what they think. And I mean, listen, if they're like, no, this is not the way to go, well, I'm going to really take that into account and give that credence. So what were you about to say, Chris?
Well, I'll say something else, but now I'm going to tee off of your point and just say,
okay, go for it.
I think, darn, I totally lost it.
Sorry.
It was going to be amazing. Going to be freaking amazing.
I believe it. Oh no.
No, I think an important thing to remember is like a lot of people I think stress about like trying to figure out, okay, what does God want me to do in this situation?
Yes.
Yep. And I think it's important to all. God gives us a lot of grace, and a lot of times there are multiple ways you can go, and that's okay. And like sometimes those decisions like are less about which thing we choose to do, and more about, are we trusting God through this process? Are we allowing His grace to cover even our mistakes? If we don't make the best decision, are we going to trust that God, is going to cover us with His grace and love as we're moving forward? And I think situations is, somebody gave me this analogy, and it's a good one, I think. That's just, it's easier to let God steer a vehicle that is moving. And I think that's something to keep in mind. It's just like continuing to move and continuing to do, I think, is an important part of whether we might still be waiting on like an answer to a prayer and an answer to a question, but we can still move forward in most cases.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that speaks to the parable of the talents, where the one guy that didn't just buried his talent, God was most upset with him. Like at least the other two tried, and I mean they were able to double what they made. But the guy, but he said to the one servant, "Well, you should at least put it in the bag, do something with it." And so I think if it is easier for God to steer a car that's moving than just one that's stuck.
I'm gonna steal that and take credit for it. So.
Go for it.
Hey, look what I thought of, you guys.
Right down. Yes, perfect.
Proverbs 25:2 says, "It's the glory of God to conceal a matter; to search out a matter is the glory of kings." So I think that there are certain things that God will leave a little nebulous for us. So that we have to press into Him, so that we have to use our wisdom and our sensitivity to His Spirit to discover. And I think that's cool, because that's not just God leaving instructions, magnet on the refrigerator. This is how you make the
warm
easy
casserole, $3.50 for 30 minutes.
Exactly. This is God saying, "Follow me, discover, this truth. We're going to be on a journey together."
Yes.
And, you could have just given the baby back right at the front of the labyrinth, right? But sometimes going through the labyrinth is what brings the character development in us, whether you believe that she had or had not character development in the movie.
She did. I totally believe if Jared was like, or Jaerod was like, "Hey, here's the baby," she'd be like, "No, I hate it again." But
the next day or the next week,
exactly. So that awesome. Anything more on that point you want to bring up, Tony?
I think it's great. I really love you guys, your input on that. That was awesome.
Awesome. One thing that watching this movie brought to mind for me, and I kind of have two. I'm trying to think of which one I think would be more interesting to discuss.
Well, while you're thinking about that, do you have something to input, Chris?
Oh, Chris, did you have something to say?
Hey, I do. Okay. So,
go for it. Yes.
So, given, if you watch the movie, you'll notice David Bowie's hand. So I thought that could be a good prompt for let's talk about modesty.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good idea.
No, I'm kidding.
Modest is hottest, girls.
Francisco.
Now I'm totally disappointed. That's all.
Well, where in the Bible does it say, "Thou shalt not wear as tight as pants as David Bowie"?
True. It's true.
It's
one of those.
Proverbs
it's one of those mysteries.
The Lord God to conceal a matter.
There you go.
Yes. Okay, well, so I'm going to read, this is Matthew 6, 19 through 20. And this is going to lead into my speculation. This is the NASB New American Standard Bible Version. Do not store up for yourself, and this is Jesus talking. Do not store up for yourself treasure on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. And so there's this point in Labyrinth where she's stuck in that junkyard. And it feels, I mean, I'm totally getting these like Jesus in the desert vibes. I'm not saying Sarah is Jesus, but this like these temptations to like just go where it's comfortable, just be where it's safe, just go back to your room, have your toys. Oh, look, this is, and it's interesting. She's piling up all these things onto her back. The old lady that has all the junk on her back is trying to do the same thing to her to make her almost into her this like essentially a demonic just person that cares about stuff and is just going to hoard all this stuff and not care about Toby and the people that the relationships that she's made. And so I just thought that's such an easy temptation that like I can find myself in, is to just want to have stuff because that can be comforting. Yeah. But at the end of the day, that doesn't have any lasting. It's not going to be in eternity. My Steelbook collection is not going to be in eternity. Hopefully you guys will be there and I'll be there with you. And these relationships are the things that matter. So I don't know. What did you guys make of that? Did you see the same thing there? Or am I completely off base?
It sounds like they don't make steel strong enough then.
Because it's not actually steel, it's tin. I should have my tin books like my Voltron.
The tin was stronger. Don't get me started.
Oh my gosh!
That was my takeaway too. I when you see the junk lady come in there and she's buried, and first you realize she's buried underneath all her stuff.
Yeah.
And she's trying to one by one, and it doesn't start out with her burying Sarah. It starts out with her. Oh, here's your doll. Here's your bear, dearie. Oh, and have to make yourself up. And she begins just one little thing at a time. And little temptations, just little temptation of comforts. Seeking comfort turns to captivity, and captivity turns to being consumed, and that's And if you watch really carefully, I never noticed this when I was a kid because I was watching on VHS, but watching in HD, I didn't realize that there's actually 5 junk ladies in that scene.
Oh, really?
There's other ones that they made were in the background, and all of them have different little collections of assorted items on them, and I was watching, and I was going, I wonder which of them was the first junk lady. And then if the other ones are other people that have come through the right. But one of them was the first one to pick something up, and then somebody else came into that area and they said, "Oh, have this, and this," and then they became captive. And the next one came along, and they wanted Sarah to be junk lady number 6. And in Luke chapter 12, Jesus says, "Take care, be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions." A couple chapters later, he says, "So therefore, anyone of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple." And I just wonder, and it's not just your stuff. It's not your teddy bears or your action figures or your video game collection. Whatever it is that becomes that idol in your life, it is the thing that will bury you. And boy, I'm terrified of that. I'm terrified of that. That is a nightmare-inducing scene in this movie, Francisco. And you bringing it up is going to give me bad dreams.
You're welcome, Tony. No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that, and I feel like, especially like because we're all kind of plugged into like geek culture and the like collecting that comes from that. I feel like that's a natural temptation. I'm not gonna point to like Tony's collectibles on his shelf in the background or anything. But
pay no attention to the Muppets behind the curtain.
Yeah, you can't see my shelf with some.
Oh yeah, yes.
But and I just think it's awesome that you guys are actually all examples of being plugged into that and even like enjoying that kind of thing, but doing that in a way and doing that in a way where like we're all connecting over the, it's a pretty shallow thing. Labyrinth is not, a super deep thing, and
it's not Schindler's List over here.
Yeah, exactly. Are finding ways to use that for the glory of God. And I think that's awesome. And I think that's something I think there's something there that's really powerful, and I think that's really awesome, because it could just be I like this stuff.
Yeah.
But
and I think,
but I really appreciate like stuff like this, where like Francisco, you're using that as a springboard to facilitate conversations like this.
Yeah.
Tony, your podcast that's all about merging those two worlds. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's, if like I don't know if you were going in this direction, Chris, but essentially like if it was just a movie and you just enjoyed it by yourself, I mean, yeah, it'd be a nice experience. But I think it's really when we talk about the things we see in the movies that they really come alive, and then also it's almost like eating a meal together. Well, you have conversation, you talk, you get to know each other better, and so this is just a virtual meal, I guess. I don't know if that really works, but yeah. So I enjoy these conversations a great deal for sure. Paul, did you, as we've talked, does anything come to mind that you want to springboard off of?
Yeah, going back to David Bowie's pants.
Yes, the modesty conversation.
I'm serious, and this is that last time I watched it was 10 years ago or so, but the times up before this, I never really noticed it, but in the more recent years, it's come up in internet lore of David Bowie's bulge in this. And so now it's like it was in the back of my head, and now I when I rewatched it, I found myself like looking, is this where it is? They didn't show anything below his waist this time. And it's like I lost concentration on the movie itself rather than trying to enjoy it, because I had this. It reminds me of like the garbage in, garbage out mentality. If you put too much garbage in, you're not going to be able to focus on the good stuff. And a verse that correlates that with that is Galatians 6:7-8. It says, "Do not be deceived; God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. And the one who sows his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption, but the one who sows from the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life." So it's just a reminder, folks, to stay focused on the positive things and don't fill your head with internet trash that ruins your enjoyment of movies and such.
Wow.
And in other things in life.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think there are, but I mean, okay, then I'm going to ask you this, Paul,
the devil's advocate.
Everyone else.
Okay.
No. Well, like, where'd you draw that line though? How'd you know, like, okay, because for instance, Sarah, she's kind of despicable at the beginning. So should we just throw out Labyrinth? She can just not experience Labyrinth because she's a mean character.
Well, I threw it out in the opening credits, so I'm the wrong one to ask.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, like how do we know where? I think because we're in a fallen world, the movies we make are going to show part of that fallen existence and the fall of humanity. And because we want to see stories where that is redeemed in some way. And that gives us a foretaste of being God redeeming us and us being in eternity in heaven. So we have to experience this now. Where do we draw that line of like what is too much? What is too little? Is it a personal decision? Tony, Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, all things are lawful, but not all things are profitable. I mean, you can watch some rated R movies if you want to, but they are going to make an impact on you. They really are. And eventually what you see, you're going to become desensitized to, and it's going to become normalized. And I think that we should normalize holiness. We should normalize, aspiring to be better, and also creating an environment where this is like a hard time, because we do a podcast where we talk about video games and things, and I have a hard time because what's the best video game that's come out in the past 10 years? No matter what your opinion is, it's probably
Super Mario Brothers.
It's Super Mario Brothers for the Wii. That's exactly right. Super Mario Brothers Wii U, but no, like if you're talking like Grand Theft Auto 5 is a masterful video game. I mean, they broke the mold on how to make an amazing, immersive, involved world, and no Christian would play it if Jesus was in the room with them, right? but it's still an amazing experience from a gamer thing. So how do you balance all that out? You have to just understand how to govern yourself and also how to take responsibility, because the minute you become a follower of Jesus, you invite somebody else to become a follower of you. And that's a dangerous place to be the one that okays something for someone else that doesn't have the ability to balance all that out. And I don't want to be the guy that's following David Bowie's crotch bulge, and then somebody else follows me.
Well, is that kind of like where Paul is talking about how if eating meat sacrificed to idols doesn't bother you, that's fine. Just don't do it in front of someone where it does prick their conscience to do it. Is that that kind of thing?
And Paul takes it even further. He says, "Look, if my eating meat sacrificed to idols is a stumbling block for you, I won't eat any meat." So what that is that's accountability and responsibility that goes along with his ability to he's like, they're not going to send me to hell. It's meat. It's barbecue is good, right? But I take more seriously the responsibility that God's given me as a follower and as a leader. So there is that burden there. It's not fun and nobody asks for it, but
go ahead, Chris.
Fine, I'll stop playing that anime volleyball game. Gosh.
Yeah. So everybody go put your web browser on safe search and
oh my gosh. Okay, I'll sell my Dead or Alive collection. Jeez. No.
Know the name of it. You just outed yourself.
Wait, how much?
How much? About Bulge's worth, Paul. That's about
all right.
How much is your soul worth? That's the question, boys.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But
I'm just saying.
Okay, so
Red Dead Redemption, great game, rated.
I'd like to play it. I haven't played it, but
has some theological flaws in it, but solid story.
Okay,
redemption.
here,
but what doesn't?
Here's. Okay, I have a question, but go ahead, Tony. I'll write down my question so I don't forget. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
There's a book by John Eldridge called Epic, which I believe everybody who is kind of in the nerd world and the Christian world should read, because it's about this thick. You can read it on one prolonged sit on the toilet, and it talks about the reason that the stories that we love are so impactful to us is because they mirror and reflect the theme of the story that God is telling in our lives. And I just think so much of how I've viewed media, so much of how I consume media is directed by that of I'm no longer watching those things for inspiration. I'm watching them for a reflection of my relationship with Christ, which is my real inspiration. So when I'm watching something, I can't help but see Jesus in it. It's like when you're in love with somebody and every song on the radio makes you go, oh, I miss, or, every time you go to a place, it's like, oh, remember that one time that's where we should be. So those things shouldn't affect us, because all they should do is direct us back to Jesus.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, and if it's not doing that, then that's where you need to be like, well, should I really be watching this? For instance, a big thing for me, you mentioned rated R movies earlier, Tony, and for me, it may be a desensitization, but I found the movies that bother me the most are the ones that are supernatural horror in nature, typically, because those ones will stick with me. Like, I'll be scared to be in the dark at night, and I don't want to have that type of fear supersede my fear of God. And so that's what really is something where I don't unless we happen to be doing it for the podcast, then I won't partake in movies like that, because I know it affects my spirit in that way.
Sure.
I mean, you can give me Predator, you can give me Alien. I mean, things that are all sort of like naturalistically horrific, those don't bother me. But when it's like Paranormal Activity or something like that, it's like too much.
I'm with you. I agree.
What I was going to ask you guys, this is a speculation question. I'm just curious what you guys think. What's worse for you? A movie that has like mature content, but it has, let's say it has a redemptive arc, or a movie where Christians are portrayed in a very like, this is not a Christian. Why are you saying this is a Christian when it's clearly not? Like, what's worse for you?
For me, it's the latter.
The latter. But for me too. I hate it. I hate when you say that's a Christian, but it's not at all.
It depends on what the mature rating is for. Like gore and violence, I don't do. Like some violence, like Ninja Turtles, is fine, but like the John Wick or anything like that's too much for me. I turn it off.
Okay, that's fair. But it's open to interpretation, so that's your interpretation. Right. That's fine, Paul. Tony or Chris, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts on that are. And I don't think this is a salvific question. It's just I'm curious where you fall on that spectrum.
No, this This determines heaven or hell. Don't.
Oh, okay. Oh, good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
Much like the dialogue in Labyrinth, right?
Oh my God.
Okay.
Practically broke down the door.
I think the latter. I think Christians portray poorly. That's why I can't.
You clipped out for me. Christians portrayed poorly, and that's why what?
That is why I cannot stand God's Not Dead.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right.
All
that's
four
fair.
of them?
Are there 4 of them now?
Yeah.
There's 4.
Wow.
No, I mean,
okay.
Here's the thing. I've known enough Christians to know that we are hypocrites, and like
absolutely.
we are like we come in all forms. We come in all types of self-righteousness and that kind of thing. But at the same time, and so it like doesn't necessarily like bother me necessarily so much like, oh, I wish they wouldn't write this character, but it's almost like it bothers me because like I don't like that being the only representation of Christianity, because I know that there's balance to that, and there are true believers who are actually going to reflect Jesus through their lives. But also it just bothers me because honestly, if I'm being real here, it's close to home because I know that I don't consistently represent Jesus. So why would I expect a hall?
Wow, that's a good point. I never thought about that. Yeah.
So it's less because I think I object to the characters, although sometimes I just do. But for me, it's more like it's too close to a bit of a mirror. Whereas if I see a story that might have some mature, violence and that kind of thing, that won't bother me as much. If it's got a redemptive arc, like to me, that's also shining a mirror, but in a positive way, because it shows me, rather than showing me, oh, here's the ways I've been a hypocrite, and it shows me, here's what Jesus has done. Here's what Jesus. Here's an example of the power of God's redemption, because the focus is really less on what a great person I am or what a great person that person is, and it's really more about like, this is what redemption, and this is a glimpse of the gospel.
That's a
Hey, Francisco.
Yes.
I know what, and I have an idea for an episode we should do.
Okay. For Ellie?
God's Not Dead.
We'll bring Chris Cowan back to help review.
Is God's Not Dead the first one 15 years old?
Oh, I don't know, but by the time we get to it, it will be.
Oh, man. I'm telling you right now, it's tragic. It is tragic.
All right. Tony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's
God's Not Dead.
What's talking about God's Not Dead?
Oh, sorry.
I was in a screening for a Christian movie. They did like an advanced screening for ministry leaders, and they were very excited to announce. This has nothing to do with your question, Francisco, but they were very excited to announce at that time the 2 God's Not Dead movies were only the first of 7 that production company had greenlit. So just lean into it, kids. That's not going away anytime soon. There's still plenty of 90s stars that are going to make their comebacks on that platform.
Oh my God.
So to your question, Francisco, would I rather see something that was horrifically graphic and bad that had a redemptive arc, or something against Christians? Like, okay, so which one's more offensive to me? I think it's the negative, the casting aspersions on Christians, because I don't think they give the full story. I have no problem with somebody pointing out my depravity, somebody pointing out my hypocrisy, my sin. I'm glad to do that myself as part of my testimony. But what happens is they put that out. There was a TV show on one of the streaming services that somebody recommended that I watch. So I watched a little bit of it. I ended up bailing on it because it was a little too close to home. But it was about a ministry family, some big megachurch ministry family. I'm not even going to mention the name of it because I don't want to lead anybody to watch it. It was it was showed hypocrisy and depravity and just real lustful, dishonest, horrific living in the name of Jesus. And does that happen? Yes. But
Yeah.
I need the full story to be told. If you want to hear about what a bad person I am, let that only stand to glorify God. And that's not the whole story. That this whole story is not told in that way.
Yeah.
Because they would rather say the world, the engine, the machine that makes these productions would rather say they're really not better than us. They think they're better than us, but they're just as bad as we are. And what it does is it's just to bring God down a peg. It's not to it's not us. So that offends me a lot because
absolutely,
I am terrible. All the greater is God's grace.
Yeah.
And that's the part of the story that doesn't get told. I would rather watch every horrific and depraved and awful movie myself if I could just soak all those things up like Care Bear, Grumpy Bear, and just to avoid anybody from seeing and believing, because people will see and believe. It reinforces the negative stereotype that people have about believers, which is fine, but they then project that onto Jesus. And that's the number one reason I think people don't want to follow Jesus, is because they've had a bad experience, or they've perceived a bad experience with it's what I call the cow tipping myth. Everybody knows somebody who's gone cow tipping, but they don't, because cow tipping is not a real thing. There is no such thing as cow tipping. It is a hoax.
Oh, really? I didn't know this.
It's not real. But everybody thinks it's real because everybody knows somebody who went cow tipping. But you don't know anybody who has gone cow tipping because it's not real. Everybody knows somebody who is a terrible, awful hypocrite, of a Christian. Everybody knows that person, whether they do or not. Whether they do or they think that they do. It's the awful, depraved, money grubbing, lecherous, terrible, judgmental, backstabbing Christian is more of a construct of bad writing than it is reality. Yeah. But we all think that we know that person. We all think that we've had that experience, and it's not reality. It's not. I know some hypocrites, but I'd rather go to church with some hypocrites than go to hell with all of them.
That's fair. Yeah. And I would just echo that point. And I have seen some of you guys in chat say you like God's Not Dead, and that's fine. You guys, I'm a proponent of you like what you like. If you enjoy God's Not Dead, great. If you enjoy John Wick, great. As long as you don't feel like it's pushing you to sin, fantastic. But to what you were saying, Tony, is I think
God's
there's
not
this.
Dead, pushes me to sin. Just
well, then you shouldn't watch it, Chris. I think there's this element of movies and storytellers. I think I don't know what it is. If there's just not enough storytellers that are Christian that hold that belief really sacred, and they tell stories out of that. I'm sure there's tons of authors that do that, but a lot of those books never make it to like mainstream movies for whatever reason, and that may just because those stories, they don't want to tell those stories, they want to suppress those stories. I'm not going to talk about who they are. We're not going to get into that. Just the movie machine, like the people that make movies, the studios and whatnot. And I get that they're business. They want to make money. And I mean, God's Not Dead makes plenty of money though. Otherwise, I imagine they want to keep making them. What I'm trying to get at though is that even God's Not Dead doesn't show the whole picture of Christians. Christians are, on the whole, are not all that good. And just as this is my sticking point with the Castlevania anime, there aren't any good priests in that. None of them are good. Just give me one good monk. That's all I care about. One monk that wants to help Belmonts for whatever reason. Just give me one. The rest can be corrupt as whatever. That's fine. But you can't say every one of them is against killing vampires. I don't believe it. So it's too monochromatic. Would that be what I want to say? It's too bipolar. It's either all good or all bad. There's no gray. And like, take any group. It could be Christians. It could be Hindus. It could be Muslims. Because people are fallen, there are going to be jerks in those groups or people that are sociopaths or whatever, and just want to I'm going to fool these people into my way so I can get all the money or whatever. So you can't escape that, whatever group you belong to. But yeah, Christians tend to be the punching bag for that type of sacrimony. I don't know if that's the right word, but that tend to be the punching bag. I'll stop there. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I stole that from my wife. Anyway, Any other thoughts that I think Paul, you mentioned that you brought that this whole question up. How'd you?
I did not. You're the one who gave us an ultimatum. It's the MA or
yeah. No, that was my.
Take the red pill or the blue pill.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Any other? I feel like I have one more thought about Ludo and how we can move rocks. Like he can move
I want to
rocks.
know if Tony, if he brought out his big.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You had like a question in your back pocket. Did you bring that?
No, that
up,
was
Tony,
it was the junk lady. That was.
Oh, okay. Oh, really? Okay. Oh,
yeah,
fantastic.
so you nailed it. I just decided to rally along with you, man.
There we go.
Fantastic. I can't remember what I did or didn't do. That's for sure, Ashley. Awesome, guys. Well, I think that's a good place to end it. So thank you all. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, guys?
Can I get a transcript on this conversation? I'm going to preach it on Sunday.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll send you the video. Be fine. Yeah, just play it.
Just play it.
Yeah. Congregation, I'm taking the day off. Just watch this.
Just watch this.
Yeah.
All right,
but you
guys.
have to do it like they did in like grade school, where they like wheel in a VH,
wheel the card in, yeah.
and old CRT TV, and just like wheel in the cart, and like everybody gets excited, like oh.
Whoa, that's fantastic.
Best Sunday ever.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to our supporters for supporting this content, and hopefully you enjoyed it and it was thought-provoking or just enjoyable. And thank you so much to Chris, Tony, and Paul, and for all of us and me, we bid you all shalom.
That means peace.
Indeed it does. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. D. Tungsten, Ashley, I think I saw Neko in here, Cellcasting for the raid. Let's see who else is here as I'm scrolling through. Dale, Rosie, thank you for the lurk. Apple Dance, thank you for being here. Really appreciate each and every one of you. I'm sure I'm missing people that are here, but thank you all so much for hanging out. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Hopefully you all have a great rest of your weekend. We will be back tomorrow morning for Seeker of Mana, and then I think
Saturday
tomorrow night
Adventures?
also.
No,
I'm not doing Saturday Adventures right now. I'm going to restart at some point, but we're just doing SNES Quest and Nest Quest in the evening. So we'll be back with Star Tropics tomorrow night. But thank you all so much. Why are you calling me Roy Selgast? Oh!
Can I ask a question before we leave? Just
yeah, of course.
Yeah, you just did.
Mythology here.
Well,
can I ask a follow up to my original question?
Sure. Just
explain the Edna mode thing.
Oh, so that is for a long time, I used to, whenever we'd have a flub in the recording, I would say edit mode, so that when I'm editing the podcast, I know, okay, I need to actually pay attention now, because sometimes I'm playing a game or doing something else while I'm listening to the podcast to edit it. So that is just a signal to me, oh, I got to edit this. And Paul started calling it Edna mode, because it sounds like Edna mode from Incredibles. So now we just call it Edna mode.
Makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to know the origin of that, because I never really understood the liturgy there.
Oh, yeah. That's where that comes from.
Super cool.
So what we like to do here is when I end my streams, I do a stream face, which is just a silly face to end it. So if you guys want to join me in that, fantastic. Everyone here, here's your stream face.